Alli, it's great to see that most people understand they need protein. But how many people do you think are actually getting the amount of protein that their body requires on the daily?
I wish I could say a lot, Shawna, but based on what I see, especially with new clients or people that are coming in for consultation and I look at their food, it is nil. Never do I see anyone getting, especially women, getting enough protein initially. What about you?
I'm finding the same, and we've got some special guests today. Alli,
Yeah,
you and me are going to
just
do,
us gals talking today.
we're going to do a deep dive into protein, what it is, why you need it, how to get it, tricks to get more, all kinds of protein tips.
Yes, and before we dive in, we want to give a shout out to our Girls Talk Healthy Aging listener, Miss Beth Smith. Let's dive in with the Alli and Shawna show. Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
I think the feedback that I get is my clients are saying, wow, it's hard to get protein. I'm hardly getting any. And I can say, yes, you are correct. We need to get more.
And I see clients telling me that they are eating healthy and because I do in-house training and they're coming to me a lot of times for fitness, they tell me, well, I'm eating good. I'm eating healthy. I don't need help with my food. I just want to work on my exercise, but I want to lose weight. And then I ask them what they ate for breakfast, especially when they tell me they're eating healthy or what they had yesterday. And what I find is like no protein, but they think they're doing good. So there's some confusion.
Yeah, there's a lot. Should we just review kind of a little bit about protein? You want me to give a little blurb on?
Yeah. Let's go.
So basically, protein is it's the building blocks, and they are made of amino acids, and there are 9 essential and 11 non-essential amino acids. And what that means is those 11 can be made from other food sources that you're eating, but the 9 you can only get from like it's a complete protein. And there is 4 calories per gram of all proteins, which it sounds interesting to think that, oh, salmon, chicken, beef, tofu, like all protein sources, the protein aspect of that source is going to be 4 calories per gram. And it takes about 2 hours to digest protein. And some of the benefits of protein is that it does take 2 hours to digest. And so it keeps you fuller longer, helps to build and maintain your lean muscle. It helps with recovery, helps with immunity. It helps with oxygen transport throughout your body. I think the biggest with bone health,
Muscle.
Yeah. I think the biggest help is that it helps with insulin blood sugar balance. So when you include protein with the foods that you eat, you're going to blunt those sugar spikes so that you're not going to get that spike of insulin and then drop immediately after. And that's that drop after that makes you feel lack of energy and makes you hungry.
Hungrier. We get hungrier. Yes. We don't have any satiety though.
So it's so important. And as we age,
we need more.
40s and 50s and beyond, we are at risk, especially as our estrogen declines. We are at risk of sarcopenia, which means muscle wasting. So we want to hold on to as much muscle as we can, and build more. And we can't do that unless we have the building blocks. So it's just simple that we need those building blocks. And
I tell ladies we get saggy and draggy when we don't do strength training and we don't eat enough protein. I mean, those are things that are going to happen anyway. We're going to lose muscle as we age. But if we want to fight back, that protein is so important. And One of the things, and I don't remember, I should have checked the episode. We had Stuart on, and he talked some about, and I know that I've just seen him talk about timing, and it can be so confusing with protein because, we do get on social media and there are people saying, oh, you've got to do it this way. You've got to do it. You've got to eat it this much amount of time right after you work out within this window. And one of the things that I saw him recently talk about is it's really a bigger window that you can eat that protein. And so the big message, the simple message we want to get to ladies especially is you just want to get in protein and enough protein throughout the day. There's no magic. You don't have to eat it in a specific time frame related to your workout and that. If you're getting it.
Yeah. If you're an Olympian, it's a different game.
But most of us are just wanting to be healthy and live longer.
Correct. For the regular folks that just want to be healthy, live longer, strong bones, strong muscles, we want to get enough
get it in
the day. Having said that, we don't want to leave it all till the end of the day.
Right. You can't eat it. You can't eat it all at one time.
Right. And you don't get the benefit of the
satiety, and the blood sugar. And so I tell clients to make sure they're getting it every meal. Every time you eat,
meal or snack.
Meal, snack, doesn't matter. I call it all mini meals because I think that gets confusing. People think a snack is different than a meal. And it really, when I teach my class, I'm like, no, snacks are the same. You still need a protein. You still need a carb. Like those things still need to be there. I don't care if you call it a snack or you call it a meal or whatever you want to call it, and I can't get enough protein if I just eat 3 meals a day. And that's all the only fuelings that I have. I'm not going to be able to get enough. It'd be really hard for me to get enough protein. So it does take more, at least 4 feedings for me to be getting close to the place where I am going to be fueling my body with enough protein.
So let's just talk about how much protein. Mm-hmm. And there is a range, and it depends on how active you are. So generally, you want to get 0.7 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of desired or goal weight. So that's a fair bit. So if you're resistance training, then you want to be at the higher end. And if you're sedentary, you want at least the minimum of 0.7 per pound of desired weight.
Yeah. And there's other recommendations that go on kilograms of body weight and 0.75 of this, but the recommendation that you're giving,
it's the same whether it's pounds or kilos. The numbers are just based on 2.2 pounds per kilo. So, most of us in North America weigh ourselves by pounds. Mm-hmm. So if you
so I'm like around 57, 56 kilograms. And so if I'm doing 0.75 of my kilograms, that's going to be a different number.
Yeah. So, but at 125 pounds, which is about what I am.
That's why I like what you're going by.
It's just like I can just do 120. If I get 125 grams of protein, I like to get a little bit more because I train.
Me too. Yep.
But minimum, I need to be getting over 100 and closer to 130 is what.
So most of us weigh more than 100, or even our desired weight is going to be more than 100.
Honestly, if you're an adult, you probably are going to be weighing more than 100 pounds. So that is, I always encourage my clients, minimum 100 grams.
Yes, same. Yep. Yeah, I like ladies getting a minimum of 100, but I really like them getting up to the 125 or higher, depending on their size and their activity level.
And it's interesting, and I love Dr. Stuart Phillips, who we had on the podcast. Mm-hmm. And if you follow him at all, there used to be an upper limit on how much your body could absorb in one sitting, but I think the latest research coming out is saying that there's really no upper end, and it's kind of self-limiting unless you are on like a carnivore diet, which I'm not a big fan of.
Because we're not recommending.
No, I'm not.
I'm not a big fan of that either.
No, I'm not a big fan of eliminating an entire macro group. And carnivore diet, you're eliminating basically carbs. It's not keto because keto is more fat than
Yep.
protein, but anything that completely
And
eliminates,
I'm not a fan of keto either.
correct. Anything that eliminates an
Eliminates, yeah. Yeah.
macronutrient group is basically unsustainable for most people. But the
Yes.
point is that there's not really an upper limit on protein. You basically get sick of eating it or full before you
Sure.
get to 300 grams a day
Yeah. Yeah.
type thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So we're not suggesting you should just gnaw on protein all day for sure. Because there are the three macronutrients. We need the protein, we need the carbs, we need the fat. We need all three, but we
yeah,
want to really focus on protein because there's so much confusion about protein for ladies that we interact with, for Shawna and I. And so we know that listeners out there, I'm sure there's some confusion. So hopefully this episode we can help. So we talked about some of the benefits and the amounts that we need. You have a trick, Shawna. Do you want to share your trick now?
yeah, that would be great because
Okay.
uh, you know, protein, kind of like menopause, is a new cash cow.
Yes.
Marketers are getting on top of protein, like, okay, the message is getting out. We need more protein. So pay attention when you're in the grocery store because you'll see cereals, uh, granola bars, everything will say high protein.
Yes. On the front of the box in big, bold letters.
Yeah.
That's sales. That's great sales.
Yeah. And so if you just go on that labeling, you
Mhm.
might be scammed. It might have
Yes.
some protein in it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's high protein.
Not at all.
I call this the protein factor rule. And what it basically helps you determine is the percentage of protein in comparison to the calories. So,
Mhm.
just to be clear, whenever I teach this rule, I like to say that we don't have to have protein above all things. But if we are looking for a protein source, and
Mhm.
we want to know that we're getting, is this yogurt, for example, a good protein source? So it's just comparing it to the other calories in the product.
Mhm.
For example, yogurt is a great example of it. So basically, you're going to look at that nutrition label and you're going to take the protein number, you're going to multiply that by 10. That's going to give you the protein factor. Then you're going to look at the calories and then you're going to compare the protein factor to the calories. Now, I've done a couple like videos on this, and it's much easier when you have a visual, but I'm just going to walk us through maybe a couple examples. So, for example, I'm going to look at almonds,
Mhm.
nuts. Do your clients tell you that nuts are a good source of protein?
They tell me this all the time. Most women think that nuts are
Yeah,
protein, and
it's like,
yeah,
oh, I'm going to have a
I'm
great
getting
source.
plenty of protein, Allie. I'm eating all these nuts, and I'm like, wait a minute. Let's
Exactly.
let's let Shawna tell us with her trick.
Okay, so in this serving size, sorry, I just have some notes here that is okay, so in this serving size of a half an ounce of
Mm-hmm.
nuts, it's
Okay.
81.5 calories.
81.5 calories.
Yeah. And
Okay.
there are 6.5 grams of protein.
So you want to look at the grams. Okay.
Yep. So 6.5 times 10 is
Mm-hmm.
65.
65. Uh-huh.
So then now we're going to compare that to 81. It is
Right.
lower, so it's not a good source of protein.
Mm.
It's much lower.
Yeah.
Let's look at chicken McNuggets. Sounds like protein, right? Chicken.
Yep. Yeah, there's chicken in there in those McNuggets.
Okay, so for a McNugget, 48 calories for a McNugget.
For one McNugget?
Yeah.
Okay, just one, y'all. One McNugget. 48 calories, okay?
2.5 grams of protein.
Okay, multiply by 10. 25 versus
Compared to
48. So that is not a
not a good
good
source of protein.
source of protein.
All right, let's go to something like, let's go to turkey jerky.
Okay.
Sounds like protein, right?
Yeah.
Calories are 60. Okay, this is for 30 grams of turkey jerky.
Okay.
Calories are 60.
Mm-hmm.
Protein is 13 grams per 60 calories.
So 130.
13 times 10, yeah, it's over double.
Yeah. So there we go.
Yeah. So that is a great way to determine.
Fast way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I mean, these ones were very obvious. Let's go to something like lentils, because beans, lentils, they are a good source of protein. If you're looking for pure protein, let's see if this is going to be a great option. So 1 serving, which is a cup of lentils, 230 calories, 18 grams of protein.
Only 180 to 230. Yep.
Yeah. So
that's another one. Yeah. Especially when I've had vegetarian clients in particular, they think that they're getting enough protein if they're eating beans or lentils.
So here's the thing. I like to think about your calories kind of like a budget. Mm-hmm. So if you have kind of an unlimited budget, if you're not trying to create a calorie deficit,
sure,
you could eat 2 cups of lentils and get 36 grams of protein. And I tell my people, all right, you're looking for at least 30 grams of protein per meal.
Yeah.
And so, but then that's also going to come with a very high carb and fat load. So that's come to almost 500 calories.
Just off of the beans.
The lentils.
Yeah.
So it's not saying that lentils aren't a good source of protein. They are a good source of protein, but also a high calorie source.
What I tell clients is they're an even better source of carbohydrates.
Correct.
They're a good source of protein, but they're a better source of carbohydrates. And that's important to know.
There's 40 grams of carbs in that.
Right.
And
versus 13, right? Versus
18 grams of
18.
Protein.
Okay. Yeah. 18 protein. How many carbs?
40.
So yes, this is, I mean, that's one of the things I have the clients compare is how far is that protein and carb number from each other? Because there you go. So that you can use Shawna's trick, or you can look at that protein carb number and look at the difference. Now you've got to also understand how to look at fat. And that's something I teach clients with reading labels. I don't think we need to get into that today because we're going to stick to protein.
Yeah. I also just want to clarify that sometimes you want to have you don't want to just have
protein. Absolutely.
Like before you have a workout, you might want to
my goodness,
have carbs and protein. I would not choose lentils before a workout.
Yeah, you might not want to choose lentils before your workout, especially if you're working out with me. I don't know about you, Shawn.
Same. Yeah, it's but that macro profile is great, but you could get that from something else. But the point is that you don't want to just have protein, but when you are looking to increase your protein. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was protein bioavailability as well, because not all protein is equal. And we see a lot of this on social media in terms of animal protein versus plant protein.
We're going to interrupt this interview for just a second because we've got something we want to make sure that you know. If you're struggling with your health, with your fitness, if you don't know where to start or you know what to do and you're not doing it, we're here for you. And all you need to do to get our help is to reach out to Shawna and I at our email, sapodcast23@gmail.com. And we're happy to help and we will be in touch. Now back to the show.
If you have all 9 essential amino acids, you have a complete protein, you're fine. However, there's something called protein bioavailability, and that really just means how much of the protein, how much of those building blocks can be utilized by your body. And some foods have higher protein bioavailability than others. I want to talk about that protein rule in relation to eggs, because if you look at the lowly egg, This is the one protein that's not going to follow the rule, because 70 calories per egg, 6 grams of protein times by 10, 6 is less than 70, doesn't look like a great protein source. However, egg is one of the highest protein bioavailability options that you can have.
Yeah.
So
and it's also a fat. It's a better source of fat than protein, and that's why it breaks your rule, probably because of the fat content, maybe.
Yes, and we all know that, if you just have one egg for breakfast, you could throw in 2 egg whites with it.
No, people don't know that. Me and you know that, Shawna.
Yeah,
but
that's
yes,
true.
people don't know that, because that's something I teach my clients all the time, how to change. I tell them this is how we're going to change the egg and recreate the egg to instead of it being a fat protein, we're going to turn it into a protein. Protein. And we're just going to add some egg whites, mix it up, and it's still yellow. So double. I tell my clients to do, like, if you do 1 whole egg, do 2 egg whites, double the egg whites. In addition to, however, if you do 2 eggs, do at least 2 egg whites, if not 4. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I think we're sharing the same brain. We haven't even had this conversation. This is so fun. But I also want to say that we're not saying don't eat the egg yolk because it's bad.
Right.
That is not bad.
We're saying don't eat 4 to 6 egg yolks.
Well,
if you're
depending on who you are, right?
And depending on who you are. But for our clients, they're not, our female clients are not needing to eat 6 whole eggs at one sitting, typically, with all that fat, because that would be their fat for the day. I mean, that would kill their fat. Like you said, you need a certain amount. We only have a certain amount that we can get.
It's going to blow up the calories.
Yeah.
So it's going to create a surplus. And if you have an unlimited budget of calories, which
most of us don't, people think if you're me and Shawna, we're just born this way and we can eat what we want, but that is absolutely not true. We have a budget that we have to stay within.
Yeah, and so if we're trying to keep within that budget and we want more protein, that's when we do the egg white trick with the egg yolk. And there's nothing with the yolk. There's lots of good stuff there in the yolk.
We're just not overdoing it with the yolk.
Correct. So
for our budget.
Back to the bioavailability. Eggs are one of actually the highest whole food. Whey protein and whey protein isolate is equal or higher, but that's kind of like a supplement.
Right. That didn't come from an animal that was made in a lab.
Yeah. So, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But so
as far as whole food.
Correct. Eggs are the highest. And so those lentils, those beans, they are lower down. Eggs are on the protein availability chart, they are scored at 100. An egg white is like 88. Fish is 83. Beef is 80. Chicken, 79. And then as you go down, soy, 59. Beans, 49. Peanuts, 43. So as we go down and we look at some of those plant proteins, they are not as bioavailable. So what do you tell your clients about that, Alli? Because I know we agree on this.
As far as like eating plant sources, well, you can do that. You run into the thing where on one end you can run out of your calorie budget more quickly if you're not careful, depending on how you're choosing to get that protein in. The other option, and I do this, I have to use a plant-based protein powder for me, because I cannot do whey. And I wish I could. I always say, I wish I could, but I can't. And so, and protein shakes do help me to get in my protein. So I use a plant-based protein. However, it takes more. You need to be kind of at the higher end of your how much protein you're intaking from those plant sources. And because I'm doing it through a plant-based protein powder, it doesn't have all the extra calories and carbs that beans have. So I can just do a scoop and a half versus a scoop of my protein powder, which, I'm getting a little bit more calories, but they're protein calories. They're not coming from carb calories. But it takes more because those are not going to be as good as far as helping my muscles, helping my bones. I'm not going to get as much from that plant as I would if I were doing a true whey or egg whites, or animal protein. Yes.
So vegetarians, they can use plant-based proteins. It's more effort.
Yeah.
And you have to be very diligent if you are trying to stay within a calorie budget. And most of my clients are, when they come to me, they are more interested in weight loss versus weight gain. So we have to be very strategic in ways that can get that protein in. And, protein isn't the fun food, Alli.
Yes. It's not everywhere you turn. Like it is harder. My clients tell me that it's hard to get protein. And it does here's what I will say. It's just like anything else. The more you study it, the more you learn, the more you practice it, the more you work on it, the easier it gets. And the more because like I can tell my body will crave it. This sounds crazy, but my body now at this point, it will crave, it knows when my food is out of balance and I'm just not getting enough protein. And I actually will crave it, which sounds crazy, but that's my experience.
Having said that, Alli, I want to point out that you have been very diligent with your food for years.
For years. Yeah. It's just like someone who always eats fast food and they crave that, and it's hard to break that. So that's the hope I want to give to people. When you make these changes and you do it over time and you're consistent over time, your taste buds will change, what your body is used to will change, and what you crave and what you're seeking will change. And what suits you, what serves you will change.
And honestly, Alli, I can't say that I crave protein. I just know that every meal and snack, I need to have protein. I always have a running number in my head of how many grams of protein I've had. I'm an intermittent food logger. And my point is that food logging is a really valuable tool. Even if you just do it for a week and log what you're currently eating, it is an entire eye-opening experience.
Even one day, when I ask clients, what did you have yesterday? Just looking at that is just eye-opening. When we start labeling, is it a carb, is it a fat, is it a protein? People are always shocked.
Correct.
Just one day, just a one-day log, they're shocked. So yes, I'm a big fan of logging.
And so the fact that your body craves it, or I know I need to have more protein, it's because we have experience with serving sizes and with knowing what is in the food that we're eating. And that doesn't happen overnight.
No, I was going to say that comes from we've been doing this a long time. It comes from experience. And this is just another reason, a way of pointing out that me and Shawna don't have an unlimited budget of calories every day. And Shawna, I don't know how long you've been doing the food logging, or not just food logging, but really being intentional about your protein. But my guess is it's been decades, y'all, decades. We're not talking about she did this for a month. Same with me. It's decades. This is decades now. And that's okay that if you're not there, don't think that, oh gosh, I haven't been doing this for decades, I'll never be able to get this. We had to start with day one as well. I didn't wake up born eating in balance or eating enough protein. And my diet was a hot mess, like legit, all through college, through my 20s. Like my food was a hot mess and I had to make changes. It was way out of balance.
And so what I tell my clients, and my guess is that you're doing the same, Alli, is that you're not going to arrive at perfection, and nobody's perfection. We're looking for improvements.
Progress.
So if you are at 40 grams of protein because you logged one day, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to get to 100. If tomorrow you get to 50 grams of protein, win.
It was a win.
If the next day you're at 45, but you started at 40, it's a win.
Yeah.
And then over time, you learn tips and tricks, and your palate actually does change.
Change.
You're right.
Yes.
and you find foods that agree with you, that you
Right.
and sometimes I don't want to eat protein. I have food camp every week with my clients, a nutrition coaching call. It's my favorite time of coaching. And often that hour is dedicated to, what are you having for protein this week?
Yes, everybody struggles with the protein.
Me
Clients ask me
too.
all the time. Me too, and me too. They're always like, "What can I just can't. I
Yeah.
just don't like protein, or what can I get? Or the protein. The one I love. The proteins I like are not proteins. Like,
Right.
yeah, they're not protein. So the things and that really amounts to the things that I thought were proteins. Now I know better, and I know that they're not proteins. But I like those things,
Yeah.
like peanut butter, which is a big one. That's one that clients often will say, "Well, what are you having for breakfast?" So I get protein. I have toast with peanut butter every morning. Well, you have a carb covered in fat. That's what you got. That's
Amazing.
not a protein. I mean, there's some protein in there, but there's
Yeah.
way more fat. Yes,
And carbs. Correct.
yes, yes.
Exactly.
You got way more fat and carbs and a little bit of protein there. And so that is just, what I find is I have a program that I created called Fix My Food, where I teach them about this protein, carbs, and fats. And it's always, when people first watch it, it's really like a bummer for them, because I always have to warn them, like, I'm just going to tell you, you're probably not going to like me very much after you watch this, or you're probably going to be just really disheartened, because people do think that they're eating well, and they do think that they're getting enough protein, because we don't know what we don't know, but we think we know. And so when they watch the have it on video, and when they watch the first Fix My Food video, they come back and they're just like, I don't know what to eat now, because everything I was eating that I thought was good is a carb. Everything I thought was a protein is a carb or a fat. And now I don't know what to eat. That's what now I don't know what to eat. So maybe we can help people with some proteins. And I know we're going to share a resource. Do you want to tell us about the resource?
Yeah, I think, well, I have a resource that is just a list of protein options with grams. It also has the formula that we talked about in terms of how much protein you need for your goal weight. I also have a video that we can list in the show notes, maybe the Fix Your Food, so that we'll have lots of resources in the show notes. Because I think that is entirely true. People just then don't have.
What do I eat? That's what they say, Allie. Now I don't. And then they're afraid. They're like, I'm just afraid to eat, because now I don't know what to eat. And so then that just can be very discouraging. And, thankfully my clients have me to guide them. Shawna, your clients have you there to guide them. Some people don't have that guidance. And so.
Which, by the way, can be changed.
Can be changed, because Shawna and I can help you. If you need some help, reach out to us. Don't sit there and be confused.
Correct. Because, and this is the point too, is that a lot of people will just continue to do the things that are not working. Whereas you could have, and it is a big step to commit to a coach and say, okay, I'm going to log my food. Like, that doesn't sound fun. And honestly, it's not terrible, and it gets so easy after a few days of it, but it is a big change. But
and it's getting real honest. It's you have to get it really is hard to. I have clients that will even admit to lying on their food log, because lying to themselves, like just not even necessarily to me. Just not putting it down. I skipped that day because it was a bad day. I'm just not even going to write that down. So data, what I tell clients about logging is it's data. It's just like if I were checking my checkbook and I just decided I wasn't going to put those checks down that I wrote. Like, how am I going to know what my balance is? How am I going to know if I might have money in the bank or not? If I'm just like, well, I didn't like what I bought with that check, so I'm not going to put that down. I'm just going to pretend like that didn't happen.
The money's still coming out of your account.
Yeah.
And calories are still going into your mouth.
Your body.
So
that's right.
It's going to count.
Yeah.
So that's why when I hear people say, oh, food logging, that's just associated with disordered eating. It's like, no. I mean, if you were on the verge of bankruptcy, would checking or creating a budget be a sign of disordered finances? No, that's just common sense. So we have to pay attention. And I'm always stupefied by the fact that we eat every day, several times a day for our entire life. And so many of us are unaware of what
Unaware.
we're putting into our mouth, and just
Yes.
starting to pay attention takes some effort, but it pays off.
Yes. Yes. I have clients that tell me, "Oh, I don't
Dividends.
even know what I had yesterday." And I'm like, "Well, you did eat I mean, there's no cognitive loss going on here, but we just eat mindlessly, and we just are not. So yeah, I definitely. That is definitely a thing that we're just not paying attention. And I know for me myself, if I get to a place where if I'm logging, I'm going to be so much more aware of what I'm eating than if I'm not logging. Now, because I've been doing this for decades, I can get away with not necessarily logging, but there are times when I might need to reel things in and I need to jump back on a log for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Exactly. And say for after Christmas or
Yep.
after a holiday.
Yeah.
And I will just do the same to ensure I'm getting enough protein, I'm getting enough fiber, I'm
Yeah.
in my calories. My weight doesn't really change a whole lot, but
Yeah. Me too.
it's not always about weight. It's if I'm feeling sluggish, or
Mhm.
if, for example, after hip surgery, I was I was kind of afraid to eat because I thought, I'm not even moving.
Moving.
Like, what's
Right.
going to happen with this? So I was
Sure.
very diligent with food logging at that time because my
Mhm.
body needed the in my head,
Yes.
my body needed the calories to
Recover.
recover. And so
Yeah.
if I didn't log, I would have undereaten, and
Yeah.
I would have not recovered as fully. And weight
Mm.
is not an issue. And honestly, full recovery and maintaining my muscle is more important so that I could get moving. But, I don't want to call us pros, but we have been food logging for decades, or
Right.
aware
Or
of.
aware of our food or eating the same things. I know I eat the same things over and over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if people like us intermittently food log, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
We can all use benefit from that from time to time. So,
Mhm.
we went down a rabbit hole, but you're talking about what are we going to eat?
Reese, yeah, what are some proteins? What are some things? Let's talk about first. We've talked about a few. What are some things that people think are proteins that you see and hear from clients that are not proteins, that are common? We've mentioned a few nuts, not a protein.
Yeah, peanut butter.
Peanut butter, not a protein. Beans, not a protein. What
Well,
are some others? It's more of a carb than it is a protein. Yeah, beans are more of a carb. Yeah.
yeah. And sorry, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. To make it simpler, when you are filling your plate, it is a lot easier to fill your plate with something that looks like protein, like not lasagna, for example, because lasagna is going to have carbs, fat, and protein. So when you're starting out, having like your green beans, a cup of rice, a chicken breast, like having things that are distinctly more
Recognizable. Yeah.
correct.
As
It's
a
a lot
protein, because most
easier.
people know that that chicken is protein, but we're not talking about fried chicken. As she talked about the chicken nugget, if you're eating something, when I have clients that log, I have them like if it's chicken nuggets, I have them log chicken, and then I have them log nuggets separately, like the nugget, and I call that the what is
Batter.
on the batter. I have them log that separate because those are separate things. And so we have to count them. That batter is carbs and fat. The chicken is yes, protein. But so there's different ways you can do that, but it's just understanding that, Shawna's talking about a piece of baked chicken on a plate with rice and beans to be really truly, and I call it, what I tell my clients, I use the word lean protein. You need to get in a lean protein, and that helps distinguish, and lean carbs, because rice can have butter on it, rice can have oil on it, and that changes it. Now it's not just a carb, now it's a carb and a fat, or maybe it's more fat than carb. And so really, so you would label, the way I do it, I have them label that butter separately. If they have butter on their green beans or on their rice, or on their chicken. And so, but yes, chicken, I think most people know that's a protein.
I don't want to scare people off.
Right.
it's not as complicated as we make it, and or what it may sound. The idea is that it's not a one size fits all. It's very much a choose your own adventure, and it depends on what your goals are and what your calorie budget is. So you can fill your boots with salmon, either farmed or wild, as long as you have the budget for that. And so I always tell my clients, calories first, protein second. So I will help them determine a calorie goal, and then this is our protein. Some people at the end of the day say, well, I didn't get any close to my calorie, or I hit my calories, but I'm not even close on my protein. Should I keep eating? And I say, no. No.
Yeah.
Unless weight gain is your goal. And I'm not being sassy here, because that will be the result. And so when we talk about food logging, Alli, my suggestion for my clients is to not log after the fact.
Yes. Preach, Shawna, because you're just eating and you don't know how it's going to all add up.
Just so reactive, and then it's like, whoa, I blew everything.
How did I not get any well, because there was no plan.
There's no plan. Exactly. So if on Monday night you spend 5 minutes, and most folks during the week especially have a similar schedule, eat similar things, just log those things, put those in. And then say, oh, I need to add a protein here. I'm going to add a can of tuna to this salad. Oh, I need some protein at breakfast. How about I just add, I want to have my favorite cereal. Okay, throw some protein powder in milk and pour that on your cereal then. At least so that you have there's always ways to get protein into meals, but not when you get to dinner and you need 80 grams of protein and so then it's like, I get 4 chicken breasts for dinner.
I'm not eating with you, Shawna. No thanks. I don't want 4 chicken breasts for dinner.
Right, like that doesn't work. But if you have a plan beforehand, the other benefit of that, Alli, is I tell my people, if you have a plan, that solves the decision fatigue, because most people are like, oh, I don't even know what I'm having for dinner.
I'm just hungry. I need food. Feed me now.
I'm at the drive-through. I'm in eating crackers. But if you know the night before, I'm going to have salmon tomorrow night, I'm going to take the salmon out of my freezer, or I'm going to buy it on the way home. It has a bit more fat, so I'm not going to put a lot of olive oil on my blah, 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 or I'm going to cut back on my cheese at lunch. So it's like, it's easier to play food Jenga when you have that plan. Decision fatigue is reduced. And that is why most people go off, is because they don't have a plan and they're starving.
And they're hungry. Yeah. And that's the other thing. I'm glad you said that, because when you don't eat in balance and or your meals are so out of balance, it actually makes your hunger, you can get a lot hungrier.
Yes.
Because you maybe haven't had enough protein till dinner. Now you need 4 chicken breasts. And so then you're starving. And the last thing you want to eat is 4 chicken breasts when you're starving.
Well, I mean, the fact is you'd hit your protein for the day, but not get the benefit of that satiety throughout the day. And we don't want highs and lows of energy crashes.
Yes.
Oh, I feel good. Oh, I want to go have a sleep now. So having that balance is really helpful. So, wow, we had a lot to say about protein. Did we cover?
I was going to say we talked about a little bit of some of the things that aren't proteins. What are there other ones that you can think of that people think are proteins commonly?
Well, what I wanted to talk about is protein bars.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Let's talk about that, because not all protein bars are protein bars, right? There's a lot of granola bars that say that they're protein or high protein. So tell us, Shawna, what you want to say.
I would use the protein trick to count the grams of protein per the calories. I would consider, when am I having that bar and what is the purpose of my eating? So if it's pre-workout and there's lots of carbs in that bar, but there's carbs and protein in that bar, that might be a fine choice for before workout. Not a lot of fat before workouts, because it sits in your belly. So you don't want to have a lot of fat before workout. So it depends on the purpose. But generally, protein bars, my thought is that they're not generally high quality protein.
Mhm.
They're good in a pinch, like when we
Yes,
travel,
yes.
Allie, to
Travel, yes. And
have
I like the fat in the single digits. Like when you say not a lot of fat, I don't want it to be like, 17 grams of fat in that bar, even though it might have 26 grams of protein or what.
yeah,
Like that's still too much fat. And we won't get into why and calculate and all that, but single
yeah.
digits or, 10 grams or less of fat,
Well, because when you consider there's 9 calories per gram,
Right. That's why I didn't want to have to,
yeah,
get into
yeah,
that because I know
and
that gets
4 calories
confusing.
per gram of carbs and protein. So the
Yeah.
caloric load on the fat is much higher.
You and I know that and understand that. So just, if you don't understand all that, if you're going to get a protein bar, make sure you use Shawna's trick. Yes, use Shawna's trick with the protein.
Yeah, but then also the fat in the single digits is a good rule of thumb. And I tell my clients to use protein powder and bars sparingly.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with protein powder if you're having one shake a day. In fact, for most women, I say have a shake a day. You're going to
Yep.
25, 30 grams of protein, and then that's going to bump you up to 100 or more quite easily.
Yes.
Feeling like you're eating a side of beef every day.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're having protein
three shakes a day and 2 bars,
yes, then
there's no real food there.
Well, because when we talk about the bioavailability and the amino acid profile, like every protein has a slightly different amino acid profile. So it's good to get variety so that your body gets
all the things it needs.
Those building blocks. And, especially for muscle development, we want proteins that have high leucine. And that's probably you're not going to get quality protein in the bars as much.
Yeah.
Have it in your car for an emergency, your purse for an emergency, but it should not be a staple, because when we start looking at those as staples, then we stop eating fruit. We stop eating things with other and fruit doesn't have protein, but it has micronutrients and vitamins and fiber, and we need all those things as well.
Yeah. And I will say, Shawna, that an exception to that is if I have a client who their staple is Snickers bars,
then
I might swap that staple for a good balanced protein bar that has a decent amount of protein and carbs. So it really depends on if they're eating cake, it really depends on their current diet. If they're already eating fruit and veggies, and I'm not going to be like, yes, have this made in a lab bar and replace that real food. Heck no.
No. Agreed.
Yeah.
And if that's exactly right. If you're having a Mars bar, go for the protein bar. But
But still, it needs to be a protein bar that actually is a protein bar.
It has
actually is, or is at least balanced protein carbs. Yeah.
Correct.
And not a carb bar or a fat bar.
Yeah. Exactly. So did we cover it all, Allie?
Let's see. I think if you want to give any more example, I think you talked about piece of meat, vegetable, and a starch. That's always a good meal. And if you can do that, if you're not doing that at all, if you can start doing that once a week, that's progress.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just choose one meal to try and hit protein and fat in a meal.
Yeah. I start clients usually with breakfast and just start with one meal. Let's start with one meal at a time and get it balanced, and then we'll go from there.
Because what I say is all or something. Because the fact is when people start this, they think they have to do it for everything all the time. And then it just gets overwhelming. Mm-hmm. It's too much. But if you just say, hey, just do one meal.
Yeah.
And then if you can, do some logging, because that is self-correcting. Quality improves, you get educated, you learn how to make better choices, because I tell my clients we log so that we don't have to.
Yeah. And reach out to Shawna or myself if you are overwhelmed and need help. This is what we love to do. So don't be lost in the lost in the forest somewhere, but thinking that you have no way out, because this can be, especially to some people. Some people my clients will listen to this. Your clients that we've been working with will listen to this, and this is going to make a lot of sense. And be like, yeah, I've learned these things. There's going to be some people that listen to this. Are going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so confused. I'm so confused. And that's just because this is new to these what we're saying is things that the trick that you're teaching, talking about grams and calories and all these things are very new to a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. If you had a wish for our listeners today, Alli, what would it be?
To learn about how many protein grams are in food, and make sure that you're getting, if you're a female, at least shoot for 15 to 20. I mean, at least at a minimum every time you're eating.
Yeah. And my wish would be that people would challenge themselves to food log for a day, a week,
Love
because
it.
will be an eye opener and that will be a great education. And then you can go from there, baby steps to make changes going forward.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness. And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience. Until next time, be healthy and be happy.